MiniWarGaming's The Utgard Infestation!
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to the next story time for the Utgard Infestation 40k narrative campaign featuring the Sisters of Battle, or the Adepta Sororitas, against a Gene Stealer cult. In other words, the Tyranids. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what happened in our last mission. So if you have not yet watched Mission 1A and 1B, there will be spoilers. So spoiler alert. I strongly suggest you go back and watch those first, and then come and watch this, so you have been warned. So what happened in 1A and 1B? Well, of course, the Sisters of Battle were attempting to escape the clutches of the Gene Stealer cult so they could bring some very vital information to Canonist Commander Selene. And they failed to do so. Now, they didn't all get slaughtered. A lot of them got killed. About half of them were taken out by the Gene Stealers, but the other half managed to escape, but they weren't able to get back up to the surface. They had to go and basically hole up in an area, fortify that area, and then repel any Gene Stealers and other cultists who came. And they were able to do that. So they've survived, but they weren't able to get that vital information back up to Selene. Selene, in the meantime, worrying that she hadn't heard from these other battle sisters for a while, decides to just bring in her strike force and go and either rescue them, reinforce them, or drive out the cult, whatever happens to be. And so she goes with a large force, and completely unbeknownst to her what she's actually up against. Now, thankfully, she succeeds where the other sisters failed. She actually finds the cult. She's surprised at their first, when she encounters lictors and carnifexes and Gene Stealers popping out at her. But still, with her resilience, she pushes through. Her squad actually takes out the Carnifex and goes in and discovers the Patriarch, which is this weird psychic monstrosity Gene Stealer thing. It just looks so strange for a Gene Stealer. And even though it's very powerful and starts to psychically blast and manipulate and terrify battle sisters, it is eventually taken down. Selene does get injured by a Broodlord, but thankfully she survives it. So she's injured, but they did kill the Patriarch. And so that's where that ended. They were actually able to wipe through the Gene Stealer cult really, really well. But in the end, once they found the Patriarch's base of operations, that's where they met the most resistance and actually took some casualties. Which any casualty is not good for the sisters, because it's not like they have huge numbers like the Astra Militarum. So that's where we left off. Now, let's step back just for a moment. Why was the Gene Stealer cult actually found in the first place? Well, usually, as we've talked about in the previous stories, Gene Stealer cults can operate very incognito and not attract attention. But the reason that they started to attract attention in this case is because they're actually starting to affect local politics quite well. In fact, they've been influencing some of the upper echelons of the political parties on this planet. And we don't know how high up it goes, but it definitely is causing problems. In fact, they're even causing food supply issues and other riots amongst the people. And these are not people who are necessarily part of the Gene Stealer cult, but just more affected by them, because the Gene Stealer cult acts almost like a gang or, as a cult, and can still affect what everybody else is doing. And so once this was discovered, and most of this had been kept under control by the planetary governor. He was able to, every time he found that there was these political problems, he was able to send his police forces and his militia forces and quell any of the small rebellions or food supply issues or manufacturing issues that were happening. But lately, he hasn't been able to keep up with all the issues, and the insurrectionists just seem to pop up, cause problems, and then disappear. And this has been frustrating. They did find what they thought was some base of operations underground, and of course in the last story time we talked about how he tried to send forces down there and they were destroyed, but he just seems to be more sluggish in replying to these issues. The bureaucracy maybe is getting to him, who knows what, because there are billions of people. So it's not a simple matter of, oh yeah, it's definitely where the problem is right here and I send my forces right there. There's just so much to go through, so much misinformation that comes to him, just isn't being able to really be able to root out this problem. What's worse for the planetary governor is that this cult has attracted the attention of an Inquisitor. Inquisitor Croyle of the Ordos Xenos has been tracking the Hive Fleet Charon for many years now, and it's frustrated him so much because it is acting like no other Hive Fleet has acted. It is moving erratically, attacking what appears to be random planets, rather than planets that usually you can kind of track a hive fleet's movements, and you're like, okay, here's its movement, here are the planets, so it'll consume this one, then move on to this one. Sometimes it'll splinter off, and that can cause problems, but you can kind of see where it's going. You can garrison your defense. You can be ready for it. But this hive fleet is just, it skips worlds, it attacks worlds over here, and then it moves over here, it attacks world over there, and then it disappears for a while, and then all of a sudden it comes out and attacks another world. But what he is finding, a pattern that he's finding with it, finally, after many years of studying it, is that it appears that many of the worlds that it's randomly attacking have actually been under the influence of gene stealer cults or some sort of infestation. And he's finding this curious, but he's been unable to really study them closely because by the time he gets to the world, either the Tyranids have already wiped it out or the gene stealer cult has been destroyed. So one or the other, he's not been able to get up close and personal. So when he heard about the Chaos cult on Utgard, he was able to track the motions of the Hive Fleet Charon, and he sees that this could be a gene stealer cult. He sees a bit of a pattern here. And so he wants to get there as soon as possible, not only to help get rid of the cult, but because he's more interested in studying it. Because if he can start to predict the pattern of Hive Fleet Charon, then maybe the Imperium can actually track it down and destroy it once and for all. Although they're so busy with all the other problems in their sector, the Orc Wogs and the Tau uprisings and the Eldar causing problems in Necron Tomb worlds. Khnum, Overlord Khnum, and his dynasty has been expanding at an alarming rate. So there's so many problems that the Imperium is facing in this sector, but at least if he can figure out where this is going, then they can dedicate some of their resources to destroying it and finally being rid of at least this one splinter fleet. So he comes to the world. Planetary Governor, of course, is not happy about this because who wants an Inquisitor poking around in their bureaucracy? Because who knows what other secrets the Planetary Governor might have that does not want to be revealed. Even if they're not that dangerous, any deviation from what an Inquisitor thinks should be happening can really, the Inquisitor can do whatever he wants. He can order the Governor killed and then another one put in his place, or he could, who knows? It's just, you don't want an Inquisitor poking around in your politics. So Croyle is there looking at this and investigating this because, and suspecting it's a gene stealer cult. Of course, when he gets there, the sisters are actually already underground doing these fights that we saw in Mission 1A and 1B. But the sisters above ground still think it's just a chaos cult. They have not yet been notified by this, a gene stealer cult. But the rebellion gets so bad that all of a sudden, in the outer western manufacturing sector of the Hive City, or the Hive of Scar, there's a huge explosion. There is basically multiple bombs that go off, killing thousands of workers and destroying part of the manufacturing sector. Now, not enough to stop all the manufacturing, but enough to cause some supply issues. And the Planetary Governor sent some of his militia and garrisons to go and investigate, but they were actually ambushed by cultists. So the cultists are actually still there. And so he asked the Sisters of Battle, and while talking to the Inquisitor, suggests that he goes along and finds out what's happening there. And that way he can see up close and personal what is going on with this cult. And the Inquisitor, of course, agrees to this, and he's like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to go study. And on their way to this sector, as they start to enter it, they get ambushed by the cultists, the gene stealer cultists. They had enthralled some of the Imperial Guard garrisons as well. And that is going to be Mission 2A. So totally taken by surprise, he's going to get an up close and personal education on what this gene stealer cult currently looks like. And it's really strange that they get ambushed because this cult seems to know exactly where they were going and exactly what their forces looked like, and they're really well prepared for them. Mission 2B is going to be Celine back down in the underbelly, and on her way out, after she's killed the Patriarch and thinks this is success, what I've heard about gene stealer cults is when you kill the Patriarch, it doesn't destroy the whole cult, but for a good amount of time, it will disrupt them, allowing you to kind of find the rest and root them out before they can do much more damage. So she feels very successful, but on her way out, she picks up a distress signal coming from the surviving Battle Sisters. And so she reroutes the remainder of her strike force to go in and continue being in the underbelly of the Hive and actually find those sisters and rescue them. So Mission 2B is going to be a rescue mission underground, played in the Zone Mortalis. The first one is going to be a 2,000-point game, played on a very claustrophobic city fight table, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So Mission 2A, of course, is available for free. Mission 2B is available in the vault. If you're not a MiniWarGaming Vault member, of course, you can still click on it and get a 7-day free trial. We strongly suggest that you do because it's what supports us and allows us to make these videos. And you get access to so many other battle reports and painted tutorials. Basically everything that we do, we duplicate in the vault as well. Every time we put out a 40k battle report, there's a second one in the vault. Whenever we put a War Machine battle report, there's a second one in the vault. And there's also tons of painted tutorials that Chris does that are exclusive to the vault. And the big thing is it supports us, allows us to make these videos, including the free ones, keeps the lights on, pays the employees, pays our salaries, so that we can continue making battle reports and all sorts of other wargaming related videos for you. So thank you for your support, whether you're a vault member or not, but especially if you are a vault member. So go ahead, click on the links below to watch the next 2 missions, and happy wargaming.